If you've been following the headlines or this channel specifically, then you know that the Halifax real estate market has been off the rails for the last 3 years. And to put this into perspective, just 3 years ago in 2020, our average sale price in the Halifax-Dartmouth region was sitting right around $370,000. Now, just 3 years later, up 51%, we're sitting at about $560,000. Over the 40-year span from 1980 to 2020, we saw an average price growth in the Halifax-Dartmouth region per year of 5% even. Now, over the last 3 years, we've seen 26%, we've seen 16%, and now this year, respectively, we're coming down back to reality, and we're on track for about 5% price growth in 2023 versus 2022. But if you've been following along, you already know this, and the real question is, where is it going? So in today's video, I'm going to predict where the price points will be sitting at in Halifax in 10 years from now. And if you're watching this video, I'm sure you have an opinion of where you think the price points will be, and I would love to get some dialogue started in the comments below. So drop a comment below. Where do you think the price points will be in 10 years in the Halifax real estate market? Now, before I get into this a little bit further, if you're new here, my name's Andrew Stevens, and I've been a realtor in Halifax for 9 years now. And if you want to be educated on the Halifax real estate market, then this is the channel for you. So go ahead and hit that like button and hit that subscribe button. And if you want to book a call or a meeting with me, if you're thinking about making a move in the Halifax-Dartmouth area, you can reach out to me anytime in the Calendly link below in my description at a time when it's convenient for you. So like I said, the historical data over a 40-year period from 1980 to 2020, so 40 years, that's a pretty good chunk. The average growth year over year was 5%. Now, even if I include the last 3 years when the market was off the rails, it only goes up to 5.8%. So still, this is a pretty good number to work with at 5% as an average growth. Now, I'm a big believer that history will repeat itself, especially when I have that much data to work with. So to be honest, I believe we'll see a growth similar to 5% over the next 10 years, but let's break that down a little bit further. But first, I want to talk about the impending market crash that we're seeing in the comment sections of a lot of real estate articles and a lot of real estate videos, and why I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. And to me, the answer is pretty simple from a baseline perspective. And yes, there's a lot of economic factors that could impact the real estate market, such as unemployment rates, such as interest rates, such as policy changes, such as immigration, and so on. But the reality is the supply and demand is so out of line right now that I don't foresee us coming back from that anytime soon. And we're adding a ton of people in Nova Scotia every year, both out of country and from out of province. And because of this, we already can't keep up with the demand that we currently have. So I don't think we're ever going to catch up construction-wise to the demand that we're going to be seeing over the next 10 years. So this is a huge reason why I don't think we're going to see a market crash. So unless something unforeseen comes our way, such as something like a pandemic or maybe the crash of '08, something like that that we're not foreseeing right now, I do not think we're going to see a market crash, because this will not fix the supply and demand issues. But the point is a market crash possible? Sure. I'm never going to say anything is not possible. And the reality is nobody truly knows. So we're all just speculating here based on the data that we have. But is it likely? I would say definitely not. And to be honest, if we see a huge world crisis like the pandemic or like the '08 crash, we're probably going to have a lot of things that are bigger to worry about than the real estate market in particular. So let's hope that doesn't happen. So there's really 4 main scenarios that I see as potential for the next 10 years in Halifax, and they're pretty obvious when you look at it. 1 would be below average growth year over year. 2 would be typical growth like what we've seen in the last 40 years, so a 5% average year over year. 3 would be an above average growth for the next 10 years. And 4 would be the market crash, which again, I don't see it happening, but let's entertain that idea and let's say that it's possible for the sake of this video. So case number 1, if we have below average growth, let's say we only have an average of 3% growth year over year in a 10-year period, we'd be looking at an average price point in 5 years sitting at about $649,000. And then in 10 years, we'd be sitting at about $753,000. So these numbers are all rounded to the closest $1,000 just for the ease of making this video. Case number 2 would be if we have typical growth, that would use a number of 5% year over year like I talked about earlier as the 40-year average. So in 5 years with this 5% growth, we would be at $715,000. and in 10 years we would be at $912,000. Now, case number 3, let's call that above average growth of 6.5% year over year. So this would be an extra 1.5% compounding extra from the typical case that I just used. And in 5 years, in this case, we would be at $767,000 for an average. And in 10 years, we would be at $1,051,000. Now, case number 4, let's call it a crash. Well, to be honest, this one is tough to predict, but let's say the market dipped 10% next year. That will put us down to $504,000. But let's say it dips even more than that. For argument's sake, let's say we see a substantial drop of 15% year over year. That will put us all the way back down to $476,000. Now, this number is still higher than every year after we averaged $466,000 in 2021. And then let's say we only grew 2% per year from that point onward, which in the last 43 years, we've only seen a growth year over year of less than 2% 8 times, or 18.6% of the time. So I think that's a pretty reasonable number. In 10 years, in this case, we would be all the way back up to $569,000, which is still higher than the price points that we're seeing today. Truth be told, I think what's happening in Nova Scotia right now is just the tip of the iceberg. I think we've really been discovered, and I think our market will continue to grow here at a pretty good rate. So my point is, remember when everybody thought the $350,000 average was high, and then $400 was high, and then $450 was high, and now we're at $560,000. And it always seems like a crazy number until it happens, and now it's just the norm. Well, I think this is just the tip of the iceberg, and I think when rates start to drop, there's only one way our pricing can go in Halifax, and to me, that is unfortunately up. Let's remember, since 1980, the average price in the Halifax-Dartmouth region has only dropped year over year one time, and this was in 1994 to 1995, and it was only by a few $100s, so not a substantial drop. And this is through a lot of world events, the 2008 crash, the pandemic, and so on. You get my point. A lot of big changes around the world, and our price points have continued to go up year over year, and I would expect this to continue going forward. So in terms of my guess or estimate or educated guess, if that's what you want to call it, again, we're all just speculating. This video is obviously for fun. I would suggest we're going to see something more in that typical growth around 5% average year over year. Some years will be more, yes, and some years will be less, yes. I understand that, but in general, it's going to go up over time. I would expect us to end up somewhere in that realm of the typical 5% growth, which puts us in low 900s or high 800s. I think it might be a little bit less than that, so I'm thinking somewhere around mid 8s to high 800,000s is where we'll be sitting at in 10 years from now in the Halifax-Dartmouth area as an average sale price. Again, it's hard to think about those numbers and not be shocked by it, but the reality is 10 years ago, nobody thought we'd be at $560,000 today either. If you're still here watching, I would love to hear what you think. What do you think the price point's going to be like in 10 years in the Halifax-Dartmouth area? Throw a comment below. And until next time, if you got any value out of this video, all I ask is that you hit that like button and you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of my future content. And that'll help push this out to more people like you who might be interested in seeing videos like this. And until next time, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your support and have a great day.